Nothing belongs to you. Buddhist wisdom on attachment, ego, and letting go. Have you ever looked around your room, your phone, your carefully constructed life, and thought, is any of this really mine? We spend decades building a world we claim to own, clothes, titles, followers, even feelings. But what if that sense of ownership is the greatest illusion we never question? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. We spend most of our lives in quiet agreement with a single, unquestioned belief. This is mine, my clothes, my job, my partner, my past, my future, even my suffering. We carry it all like a badge of identity stitched together from what we think we own. It begins early. A toddler clutches a toy and screams, "Mine," long before learning the alphabet. Adults aren't much different. We just upgrade to cars, homes, and existential crises. But what if the very belief that we own anything is not just flawed, but the root of our suffering? What if, as the Buddha taught, nothing ever belonged to us in the first place? Take your body, for instance. You didn't choose it. You didn't request a specific height, eye color, or DNA strand. And no matter how devoted you are to green smoothies, serums, and sleep cycles, your body doesn't follow your command. It ages, sags on, and breaks down, not out of malice, but because change is its nature. If your body were truly yours, wouldn't you be able to tell it, don't age, don't get sick, stay beautiful forever? But it doesn't listen. Not because you're not trying hard enough, but because it was never yours to begin with. Even your mind doesn't obey. Sit down, close your eyes, and try to stop thinking. You'll quickly discover that thoughts don't wait for an invitation. They arrive unannounced, like drunken guests at a dinner party you didn't plan. Some thoughts are inspiring, some are ridiculous, and most are forgettable. But none of them check in with you first. If even your own thoughts defy control, can you really say they belong to you? And yet, the illusion persists. The mind latches on to a memory, a plan, a relationship, an identity, as if grasping hard enough will make the world stop spinning, as if holding tightly will keep it all from slipping through our fingers. But the more we clutch, the more fragile everything becomes. Relationships strain under the pressure of ownership. Careers lose their joy, and success becomes a status to defend. Even ordinary objects, a phone, a journal, a favorite mug, can cause surprising distress when misplaced or damaged. We aren't grieving the item. We are grieving the loss of something we believed was part of ourselves. Modern neuroscience backs this up. Studies show that the moment we feel ownership over an object, yes, even a coffee mug, the brain releases dopamine, giving us a rush of satisfaction. This is why losing a cheap pen you've carried around for a few weeks can feel irrationally irritating. It's not about the pen. It's about the mind's deep, habitual belief. This was mine. Ownership, in other words, is less about reality and more about narrative, a mental story we tell ourselves about permanence in a world where nothing holds still. There's an old story. A powerful king once stood before his court and proclaimed, "This entire kingdom belongs to me." A sage bent down, picked up a single grain of sand, and asked, "Can you take even this with you when you die?" The king had no answer, because the answer is obvious. Still, the mind rebels. It keeps grasping, like a monkey reaching into a jar full of nuts. The monkey's hand fits easily when open, but once it grips the prize, the fist becomes too large to pull out. The monkey panics, not realizing that freedom requires only one thing: letting go. We are that monkey, trapped not by the jar, but by the unwillingness to release. We cling to ideas, outcomes, lovers, labels, possessions, and pride, not because they bring lasting peace, but because we believe that without them we'll disappear. But what if clinging is what keeps us from appearing fully, freely, and presently? We often confuse attachment with love. We mistake control for care. But love doesn't say, "You are mine." Love says, "You are free." When we build our identity on what we possess, physically or psychologically, we turn our self-worth into a fragile glass sculpture. One knock, one crack, and we shatter. A breakup, a lost job, a forgotten compliment, and suddenly we're spiraling. Why? Because we believed those things were part of us. This illusion isn't a moral failure. It's deeply human. Our brains are wired for it. But the Buddha didn't come to shame the human condition. He came to understand it and then show a path beyond it. He pointed out the quiet insanity of trying to control what cannot be controlled, to own what is inherently unownable. Not just material objects, but our bodies, minds, and even the identities we so fiercely protect. So here's the unsettling truth and the gentle beginning of freedom. You don't own your body. You don't own your thoughts. You don't own your partner, your child, your home, or even your name. You don't own your life. You're just passing through. This might feel disorienting at first, but hold that discomfort gently. Breathe into it, because on the other side of that realization isn't emptiness, it's release. You don't have to cling anymore. You never needed to. And if nothing truly belongs to you, maybe that's not a loss. Maybe that's where the freedom begins. Clinging feels so natural we rarely question it. We grip, we grasp, we hold. Our possessions, our relationships, our stories about who we are as if life depends on it. But what if it's the gripping itself that's choking us? The Buddha described clinging as one of the core causes of suffering. He didn't say that desire by itself is evil. Wanting food when you're hungry or seeking connection isn't the problem. The problem arises when desire becomes attachment. It's when we try to freeze the flow of life and claim ownership over what was never meant to stay. You've probably felt it. That strange panic when you misplace your phone. That tightness in your chest when someone questions your ideas. That irrational frustration when someone borrows something and forgets to return it. These aren't just quirks, they're clues. Clues that our mind has mistaken having for being. Why is clinging so persistent? Because it's chemically rewarding, at least temporarily. Neuroscience tells us that ownership activates pleasure centers in the brain. Just thinking this is mine triggers dopamine, the same chemical that gives us the thrill of love or chocolate. This is why children become disproportionately attached to random toys. It's also why adults develop irrational loyalty to objects that cost nothing but feel important. An old t-shirt, a cracked mug, a pen that just writes well. But this pleasure comes at a price. The more we believe we own something, the more afraid we become of losing it. What starts as satisfaction quickly turns into anxiety. We become possessive, not out of greed, but out of fear. The tighter we cling, the more fragile everything feels. Take the classic case, the person who loves their expensive watch. At first, it's a symbol of success. Then, it becomes a worry. Did I leave it somewhere? Is it scratched? What if someone takes it? What once brought joy now brings tension. The object hasn't changed. The attachment has. And this fear of loss isn't just in the mind, it's in the body. Studies have shown that losing something meaningful, whether a person, an object, or even a social status, activates the same brain regions as physical pain. That's why heartbreak hurts. Why being ghosted can feel like being punched. Why losing a job can feel like losing a limb. We don't just own things, we become them. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once wrote, "You may control your thoughts and actions, but everything else, your possessions, your reputation, even your body, lies beyond your grasp. Replace the toga with a robe, and you've got Buddhism's core message. Suffering increases when we try to control what was never under our control. But the damage of clinging isn't limited to objects or status. It cuts into our relationships too. Think of the parent who tries to control every choice their child makes, not out of malice, but out of love. Don't hang out with them. Don't take that job. I know what's best." But love, when tangled with control, becomes suffocation. The child pulls away, and the parent, heartbroken, thinks, "But I just cared so much." Or the partner who demands constant reassurance, "Do you still love me? Who were you texting?" What begins as affection curdles into suspicion. The more they cling, the more distance they create. What they feared most, losing the other, becomes more likely the tighter they hold on. Even with ourselves, clinging is corrosive. We develop identities. I'm strong. I'm the responsible one. I don't cry. Then life challenges us, and we find ourselves suffering not from the experience itself, but from the pressure to uphold the image. We can't be vulnerable because we've branded ourselves as invincible. We can't ask for help because we're supposed to be self-reliant. Clinging to identity can be just as painful as clinging to a lover. So why do we do it? Because we believe that control equals safety. That if we manage our world tightly enough, our relationships, our bodies, our status, our narrative, we can avoid suffering. But in truth, this attempt to control life is the root of our restlessness. It's like carrying a heavy bag you think you have to hold. At first, you barely notice the weight, but as time passes, your arms ache, your pace slows, you forget what it feels like to be free. Then one day, you let it go, and the relief is immediate. That's what letting go feels like. Not loss, but release. The Buddha never said we should renounce joy or reject the world. He never asked us to abandon meaningful relationships or live in cold detachment. He asked us to loosen our grip, to walk through life with open hands instead of clenched fists. Because the truth is, you can't cling and be present at the same time. When we loosen our grip, we don't lose love, we deepen it. When we stop trying to control others, we meet them where they are. When we stop defending an image of ourselves, we discover who we really are underneath the armor. Imagine approaching life not as a collector, but as a traveler. You enjoy the moments, the people, the places, but you don't try to pack them all into your suitcase. You know you're just passing through, and that knowledge doesn't diminish the beauty. It makes it brighter. The world was never meant to be owned. It was meant to be loved, briefly, and released. Imagine walking through a dense forest, carrying a backpack full of stones. Each stone represents something you cling to: your car, your career, your social standing, your memories, your fears. At first, the weight seems manageable. You've carried these things so long, they feel like part of you. But as the trail climbs, as life unfolds in its usual unpredictable way, the burden grows heavier. Your breath shortens, your steps slow, the world around you blurs, and then, at last, you stop, drop the backpack, and breathe. And in that moment, you remember what lightness feels like. This is what it means to let go. But we don't reach this moment easily. Most of us are too busy convincing ourselves that carrying the load is necessary, that if we let go, we'll lose control, or worse, lose ourselves. We fear that without our achievements, our relationships, our opinions, we are nothing. So we grip harder. We tell ourselves it's safer to hurt under the weight than to risk setting it down. The Buddha understood this all too well. He didn't condemn the human impulse to hold on. He recognized it. He saw that our suffering isn't caused by pain itself, but by the desperate attempt to make the impermanent permanent. To turn fleeting moments into furniture we can sit on forever. But life doesn't work that way. It moves, and when we refuse to move with it, we suffer. Letting go isn't a spiritual cliche, it's a psychological necessity. Consider the person who had one shining moment in their career years ago, and now refuses to try anything new for fear it won't live up. Or the person who clings to an identity, the strong one, the smart one, the one who never needs help, and silently suffers because vulnerability threatens that image. These aren't just emotional ruts, they're prisons, and clinging is the warden. The irony? The walls of these prisons are built from stories we tell ourselves, stories that began as protection and slowly turned into cages. Take relationships. A parent may love their child deeply, but if that love becomes a need to control, to dictate every decision for their own good, it becomes suffocating. Or take a romantic partner who starts out attentive but turns possessive, mistaking love for ownership. The tighter the grip, the more love turns to resentment, the more freedom shrinks. The relationship may still exist, but the connection begins to die. This is the tragedy of clinging. It poisons what we most want to preserve. So what's the alternative? Indifference? Detachment? Coldness? Not at all. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means opening up. It means shifting from grasping to holding lightly, from controlling to trusting, from clinging to being with. It means recognizing that we can love fully without needing to possess, that we can engage deeply without demanding permanence, that we can be present with life without insisting it look the way we want. It's not about turning away from joy or connection. It's about stepping into them with awareness, with reverence, with humility, knowing that they are passing through, and that's what makes them beautiful. Think of it like holding water in your hand. If you squeeze tightly, it slips through your fingers. But if you relax your palm, it lingers a little longer. The water is still not yours, but you can feel its coolness, its weight, its presence. You can love it without needing to own it. This is what the Buddha meant when he spoke of non-attachment, not numbness, not apathy, but the ability to care without clinging. We carry so many assumptions about love, that it must be proven, that it must last, that it must fulfill. But true love, whether for a person, a purpose, or a path, asks nothing in return. It exists not in ownership, but in offering, and so it is with the self. We cling to an idea of who we are, our resume, our roles, our reputations, but identity, like everything else, shifts. The person you were 10 years ago no longer exists. The person you'll be in 10 years, a mystery. To cling to a fixed self is to deny the truth of your own becoming. Jean-Paul Sartre once observed how easily we define ourselves by our possessions, that the loss of things can feel like the loss of self. Buddhism cuts deeper. Even the mind, even the I, is not something we own. The self is just another process, another conditioned phenomenon, rising, peaking, fading, just like clouds or seasons or relationships. And when we stop trying to hold it still, something shifts. We become lighter, freer, more responsive to life, rather than reactive, more attuned to the moment rather than trapped in the past or afraid of the future. We stop dragging the backpack, we walk. So how do we begin to let go? Not with a grand gesture, not by renouncing everything and moving to a mountain, but in small ways, daily choices, simple shifts. When frustration arises, ask, what am I clinging to here? When fear appears, wonder, what am I afraid to lose? When joy arrives, whisper, this too will pass. And that's okay. Even these subtle moments of awareness begin to soften the grip. The Buddha didn't offer escape. He offered intimacy with life. Not the life we wish we had, but the one unfolding right now. And in that intimacy, we learn that peace isn't the result of having everything under control. It's the result of letting go of the need to control it all. If letting go lightens our burdens, what does love without possession look like? It might seem like a contradiction. After all, we're taught that love means holding on, holding someone close, holding someone dear, holding them accountable. But Buddhist wisdom invites us to flip that script. Maybe love isn't in the holding, but in the space we offer, the space to grow, the space to change, the space to leave if they must. Letting go doesn't kill love. It reveals its true nature. Imagine a parent and a child. One parent clings, they hover, they micromanage, they correct every step. Out of love, yes, but also out of fear. Fear of danger, of failure, of not being needed. Over time, the child feels it, not as warmth, but as weight. The relationship, once nurturing, starts to feel claustrophobic. Now imagine a parent who lets go, not out of indifference, but trust. They set boundaries, yes, but they also give space. They guide, then release. They're present, not possessive. that child grows with a different sense of self, grounded in love, but not tethered by it. This is the paradox of freedom. The more we let go, the deeper the bond can grow. The same is true in romantic relationships. At first, attachment and passion can look similar, but attachment is anxious. It demands. It says, I need you to be mine to feel safe. Love, in its purest form, says, I want you to be free, and I will still meet you here. Possession tightens, love breathes. That breath is where peace lives. When we stop trying to own people, they feel it. They trust more. They open more. And ironically, they stay longer, not because they have to, but because they want to. The Buddha taught that clinging is suffering, but he never said connection is. In fact, he emphasized interbeing, the deep interconnectedness of all life. It's not about withdrawing from others, it's about showing up without needing to grasp them. So what does this look like in daily life? It looks like celebrating a friend's success without needing to be part of it. It looks like allowing a partner to grow in directions you didn't expect. It looks like listening without trying to fix, advise, or absorb someone's pain. It looks like being okay with not always being chosen, and still loving. This isn't attachment, it's unconditionality. It's offering love that doesn't depend on outcome, that doesn't demand repayment. That isn't secretly a transaction in disguise. It's not easy, but it's freeing for everyone involved, and it goes beyond people. You can love your work without letting it define your worth. You can love your body without needing it to stay young. You can love this life without pretending it will last forever. In fact, because it won't last, you can love it more deeply, more tenderly, with more awe, because you're not clinging, you're witnessing. Letting go isn't about being aloof, it's about being fully here. To love without possession is to love what is, not what you wish it would be. It's to say, this moment is enough, and it always has been. But it also means letting go of how we see ourselves. We cling not just to people, but to personas, roles we've worn for years, stories we've told so often we believe they're true. I'm the strong one. I'm the failure. I'm not lovable. These aren't facts. They're rehearsed lines in a play that's constantly being rewritten. What if, for a moment, you dropped the script? What if you stopped needing to be anything other than present? You might find a strange lightness there, a sense of coming home to a self that doesn't need to be defended. A fluid self, not a fixed one, a self that changes, that adapts, that breathes. And just like that, the walls begin to fall. You don't need to cling to your accomplishments to prove your value. You don't need to grip your suffering to justify your identity. You don't need to protect an image to deserve love. In the absence of possession, there is presence. And presence is where peace begins. Letting go does not make us cold, it makes us clear. It doesn't make us detached. It makes us devoted, without fear. It doesn't make us less human, it makes us more honest. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, attachment brings suffering. The wise person lets go and finds peace. So when we love, let's love like the bird who builds a nest with care and still flies when the season changes. Let's love like the moon, touching everything, grasping nothing. Let's love with open hands, because nothing was ever ours to begin with, and that's what makes it all so precious. Imagine this. You're walking through a sunlit forest. Your steps are light, your hands are free. You feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, hear the gentle rustling of leaves. Notice the curve of the path ahead. Nothing weighs you down. You're not lost in yesterday's regret or tomorrow's plan. You're just here. That's what it feels like when you let go. Not detached, not empty, but fully present. We usually don't realize how burdened we are until we begin to loosen our grip. The heaviness we carry, possessions, relationships, identities, is not always in the things themselves, but in the mental contracts we create around them. This must stay, that must not change. I need this to be okay. But what if we gently tore up those contracts? Buddhism teaches that our suffering doesn't come from loss. It comes from our refusals to accept loss as part of life. When we understand that everything is impermanent, our bodies, our belongings, our relationships, our beliefs, we begin to see that clinging to them was never protection, it was resistance. And resistance is exhausting, so instead we practice. We train the mind to see clearly, to soften, to release. The Buddha offered a remarkably simple but powerful exercise, mindfulness of impermanence. Inhale, exhale. Watch each breath come and go. Each one is a tiny letting go. Thoughts arise, stay for a moment and pass. Emotions rise like waves, peak and dissolve. Nothing lingers forever. And when we observe this deeply, we begin to unhook from the illusion that anything ever truly belonged to us. To take this further, here's a practice you can try. Today, whenever you interact with something, a phone, a thought, a person, say quietly in your mind, "This does not belong to me." Pick up your keys. This does not belong to me. Check your reflection. This does not belong to me. Feel joy, frustration, fear, or love. This too does not belong to me. This isn't a rejection, it's a softening, a gentle reminder that you are a guest in this moment and everything you touch is on loan. At first, this may feel unsettling, but stay with it. Over time, you may notice something strange, lightness, clarity, peace. When we stop gripping, we create space. Space for joy to arise naturally. Space for grief to move through without overwhelming us. Space for others to be who they are, not who we need them to be. In this space, we discover something we were too busy to notice before. The deep, unshakable freedom of not needing to own anything, not even ourselves. This insight doesn't make us passive. It doesn't mean we stop caring. In fact, it allows us to care more deeply because our love is no longer tainted by fear. We can love without grasping, give without expecting, live without clinging. This is not the absence of meaning, it's the presence of wisdom. And with that wisdom comes a profound shift. We stop identifying with the contents of our life and start identifying with the awareness that observes it all. The awareness that watches thoughts come and go, that sees possessions change hands, that experiences love rising and fading. That awareness was never owned, and it never owned anything. It just is, like the sky that holds every weather without becoming it. Your true nature holds every experience without needing to claim it. This is the heart of the Buddha's teaching, not nihilism, but liberation. Not emptiness as despair, but emptiness as boundless openness, as lightness, as truth. So let the breath come and go. Let the world move. Let the people you love grow and change. Let your own self-image shift like a sand mandala under wind. None of it was yours, and yet you are still here, watching, breathing free, because the final truth is simple. Nothing ever belonged to you, and that is why you are already free. We spend our lives trying to hold everything in place, our image, our status, our people, our dreams, but in the end, nothing stays, and that's not a tragedy, it's a doorway. Letting go isn't giving up, it's growing up, it's seeing clearly, loving deeply, and walking lightly. You can still care, you can still build, dream, and create. Just don't mistake anything for yours. You are the sky, not the weather, so maybe try it, just for today. Whisper, "This does not belong to me," not to distance yourself, but to remember the truth that nothing can be lost when nothing is owned. And what remains in that open hand is peace.